Let's talk about these key stories with my legal panel. Joining me is Wendy Patrick, an attorney and political analyst, and Elliot Felig, also an attorney at his own firm, Elliot Felig and Associates, my legal power panel. Thanks for being with us, Wendy. Let's start with you. Wendy, the Department of Justice's own Inspector General has said that McCabe lied or misrepresented key facts. Republicans have also pointed out a big conflict of interest as they see it, that a longtime Hillary Clinton ally donated around $500,000 to McCabe's wife towards her campaign. Does McCabe going into this have a major credibility problem?
Michelle, he does for exactly the reasons that you've laid out. Source credibility is huge when we're evaluating what we should believe and the weight we should give to the blockbuster statements that McCabe has made. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle between these statements were made and Rosenstein saying maybe they were, but we were just kidding. The fact that he's going and promoting his book, the fact that he's done this 60 Minutes, there's lots that you can look at to say he has a motive to make it as salacious as possible. But, you know, there might be a kernel of truth in there somewhere. And that's probably where we get some of the credibility issues that we've been talking about with these contemporaneous notes that he apparently took, where maybe it was discussed, but nobody really took them seriously. I guess we're all going to find out when we all watch the show on Sunday night. But, you know, his credibility is at issue for exactly the reasons that you cite. Or
we'll find out when we read the book, which is probably what he wants us all to do. Elliot, to Wendy's point, McCabe's out of a job. He needs money. Sure. He's got this new book. That combined with all of the other reasons we listed, does this make him lack credibility, in your opinion?
Well, look, it's perfectly fair when you're dealing with any kind of witness to say, what's the credibility? Where the bias is? Does he have an agenda? And if you wanted to make the case that there was a long-standing, deep state, permanent bureaucracy looking to undermine the presidency of Donald Trump from the outset, this would probably be Exhibit 1, a group of bureaucrats, long-standing in government, getting together and talking about a way to undermine the election of the duly elected president of the United States.
Elliot, staying with you, let's just figure out what we're talking about here, because McCabe said that he and other justice officials openly discussed trying to push the president out using the 25th Amendment. Right. Explain what that is. What is the 25th Amendment?
So the 25th Amendment really doesn't belong to people at the Justice Department, or the power doesn't go to them. It goes to the vice president with a majority of the cabinet. They are authorized under the 25th Amendment to bring a letter to the Congress saying the president is not capable of doing his duties. It really is meant to deal with a situation where the president, for example, is not physically healthy, has been mentally, physically incapacitated. But it's never been invoked since it was passed after Lyndon Johnson became president. But look, the prospect of bureaucrats, not members of the cabinet, not the vice president, getting together, rubbing their hands and coming up with a scheme to invoke it, it is kind of shocking, and it certainly lends credence to this theory of a deep state.
Yeah, Wendy, the president talks about the deep state. Critics say that he's just pushing conspiracy theories when he does that. But when you do hear, as Elliot says, of bureaucrats trying to put together a group to invoke the 25th Amendment to get the president out of office, and reportedly also trying to get the deputy attorney general to wear a recording device, I mean, that sounds like a coup d'etat to me. I mean, this does sound consistent with a permanent deep state trying to make sure that they're still there and trying to undermine the will of the people. What's your read on this?
Elliot and Michelle, that would never happen. None of this would ever happen. Elliot points out it's never been invoked. It's not going to be invoked here. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to talk about the legal realities of, oh gosh, how would you do it if you would? Well, he doesn't think it's going to happen either. So he discounts the talk that's going on about it. There's no way he listens to this and takes it seriously, because remember, he's surrounded himself with people that probably are smarter than he is, thankfully, about some of these legal issues and what would have to happen for that to be invoked. The fact that it's being discussed is relevant, not because they're going to do it, but to show the chaos, no doubt, that was present in the White House after some of the things the president did after he took office, like firing Jim Comey. So it's relevant for that reason, not because literally it's something that stands a chance of ever coming to pass.
All right. But then we have to wonder what McCabe's motivation is in all of this. I mean, he started the Russia probe. He attempted to do this. Where do you think he was coming from?
It's a perfectly fair question. If he were ever a witness, you would absolutely want to probe that to say where's the motivation and how it relates to credibility. Look, we'll never be able to open up the top of his head and look inside and say what percent of this was political motivation, what percent was personal animosity, what percent was legitimate concerns. But in fairness to McCabe, we have seen by President Trump an unprecedented attack on his own Department of Justice. And it is disconcerting when a president sends out tweets that make it seem like he wants DOJ to be an arm of the RNC.
But that's all happened subsequently, you
Right.
could say. I mean, this wasn't, I mean, I'm sure that there were some tweets from the president at that point as well, but this all happened subsequent to firing of Comey.
Sure.
So you can't now look at all the texts that the president has sent out subsequently to that and help put together a case for McCabe's possible motive.
I think the president had the absolute right to fire Comey. He's a part of the executive branch. That being said, I don't think it's outlandish for someone to say in the wake of Comey being fired, hey, do we have a situation where a president is going to use his ability to hire and fire people to promote a political agenda or to undermine investigations that might hurt him? I think that's a fair concern.
Even there were grounds from Democrats to fire Comey over the handling of the Hillary Clinton email
No question.
serve investigation.
Comey has been a hero and a villain to Democrats when it fits their needs. There we agree.
So, Wendy, I mean, is there an argument to be made that McCabe was right in trying to perhaps get the president removed and in starting the investigation against him, that there could have been a genuine, legitimate reason of concern here? Or do you think it does sort of all-encompassing lend itself towards the political angle?
McCabe can have mixed motives. You often see this when people come forward and make statements like he's making now, like he made back then. The concerns may have been completely well-founded and legitimate. What you do with those concerns is not try to invoke the 25th Amendment, but the fact that they discussed maybe options, let's give him that. Maybe Rosenstein even said that, saying he was kidding, of course, and would never wear a wire. But that discussion that took place back then may have evolved and may today be very different. You mentioned the book tour. You mentioned the 60 Minutes interview. There may also have been a genuine concern for the country. You know, he may be dishonest, and that's actually why he was fired, according to news reports. But obviously, he doesn't want to see the president do anything rash. None of us do. So we all sort of have a common agenda when it comes to seeing things run smoothly at the White House. But that's not to say that currently, in the statements that he made today, in the statements that he made on 60 Minutes, that there isn't a bit of political invective that maybe is sort of sullying, muddying the waters there a little bit. So we can't really take that at face value. One more thing, Elliot brings up what you would and wouldn't want to see in court. Corroboration is one of the things we look for when you have statements like this. Who else heard it? When did they hear it? What other facts and circumstances corroborate that this was actually said? We haven't seen that yet.
All right, I want to very quickly get your thoughts on another topic, and that is, of course, the president reportedly preparing to declare a national emergency to get more funding for border security. Democrats say they're going to challenge this legally. Elliot, can he do this from a legal perspective?
There are two statutes which he will say allow him authorization. I expect the Democrats to challenge it based on two avenues. They're going to say it doesn't fit the definition of emergency. They're going to say defending the border doesn't fit the definition of a military project, which is what those statutes demand. It's going to go into the courts. You may see some parallels to the argument over the travel ban as well.
But he has the authority to do this, the legal authority.
He certainly has two statutes he can cite which on their face give him the authority. Whether they'll survive the challenge, yet to be seen.
Wendy, what's your read on this? Does the president have the legal authority to do it, and will he ultimately prevail?
I would say yes, and possibly, given the fact that he ultimately prevailed in some of the other questionable executive orders he made early on. People said, oh, there's no way that the travel ban, for example, is going to be upheld. There's no way other things that he declared will be upheld. But some of his executive actions are, in fact, constitutional. Ironically, some of the challenges to his actions are not that he does not have the lawful authority, but that he's doing them for the wrong reasons. That requires us to get inside his head and prove intent. And as Elliot and I know, that's difficult. You can look at what somebody does and sort of circumstantially infer intent. Well, if there's a crisis at the border, why is he only declaring it now? But that's easier said than done when it comes to proving that any of these statutes were used for the wrong reasons.
All right. I'm sure we will continue this particular conversation again. Thank you so much, Wendy Patrick and Elliot Felig, and happy Valentine's Day to you both.
Thank you.